Back tonight on In Focus, challenges in President Cyril Ramaphosa's social compact negotiations at the National Economic Development and Labour Council mean the president's vision missed its 100th day deadline on the 16th of June. Joining us to discuss why and how is Wits University School of Economics and Finance lecturer, Dr. Lumkile Mondi. Dr. Mondi, good evening and thank you very much for your time and for joining us. A new social compact was something that was, of course, promised by the president in his State of the Nation address in 100 days. It sounded like something that was quite urgent, something that needed to be in place quite urgent. How important is the realignment of our politics from just wanting to capture power for all of us, including those in government, those in labor, those in capital, to focus on growth, jobs and security?
It is critical in building an inclusive society that is focused on well-being. We've seen historically how many countries, particularly in Europe, the so-called Scandinavian countries, how they've been able to compact and ensure that not only does business thrive, and labor that's embedded in society, but the broader community within the Scandinavian model moves forward and succeeds. And we've seen other models, of course, in Germany, revolving around what is called a cooperative model at land level between employees, the employer and government, really focusing not only on production, but ensuring that also unions sit on boards and they can be able to drive an agenda that moves society forward, focusing on not leaving anyone behind. In South Africa, it's very complicated, and it has been deepened really by the corruption that we're talking about in the past program relating to state capture, and the fact that many of us as South Africans are very skeptical of the politics and the politicians. But also, on the other hand, given the history of exclusion in business, there's also many South Africans who are very skeptical about business coming to the table. Of course, the labor movement remains fragmented, as communities are. So South Africa really is in a very, very difficult period, a deep crisis of skepticism, of falling infrastructure, of failing government, and really only few institutions holding. And therefore, when we talk about social compact, it is a hard task. Yeah. It's not surprising why the president has also struggled within the 100 days to come with something tangible.
Hilary Joffe is saying in one article that while we're talking of a new social compact, what happened to the old one, right? Power dynamics, do you think it's what we are continuing to see at play in these negotiations? Why we have not reached? I mean, you talk here of a number of issues that are still on the table around public servant salaries, for example, around the breaking down of ESCOM, just transition, what this means, the issue of our ports, and whether we're privatizing or what's going on there. We've opened up the spectrum. We've left out a whole chunk of black business. We've allowed the usual players. You know, these are all the things that continue to be out there. Are these healthy debates or are these just power dynamics at play?
These are healthy debates which are needed in society that's still trying to find a center, a very big center that can be able to create trust and create confidence that it is possible in South Africa to have inclusivity and deeper economic participation by the youth, particularly black youth, and many of those outside the labor market, by taking certain hard decisions. In this period that we're at, is that trust has completely disappeared because not only have we been let down by the political economy, we've been let down by institutions around us, be it police, be it the teachers that are supposed to contract with students rather than dating students at school, or be it really the very same people at the church, when you look up the church, where Churchill has become richer when in fact the majority of its constituency is getting poorer. So all these issues that have bedeviled South Africa have really created more division. So what is required, and it's encouraging that the debate is going on, that perhaps as a start, we need to look forward to a life beyond the ANC around 2024, where there is a new coalition that really stands up to take on the mighty ANC, and in doing so, should it succeed and get the support of South Africans, then come back to contract again and build a new compact with South Africans, but looking at long term, would not focusing on really short term issues that have divided us, such as, for example, issues relating to empowerment, issues relating to racial preference, etc. So really picking issues that can unite us, that can be a symbol that working together we can go far than focusing on what divides us. So that will require a different type of leadership, a leadership that is able to really cut across our differences, which Mandela historically was so good at. And in this period, neither business, nor community, or civil society, nor the political parties are able to do so. And hence the call to look at themselves and see whether they can unite in some form of a democratic front that can take on the mighty ANC, given its failures, and really create a new vision for South Africa, and in that process, rebuild a new social cohesion and a new social contract for a better life for all.
There are some in business who would look at some kind of shifts in policy orientation, saying, well, we've done some degree of shifts in critical areas. Are these shifts deep enough, or just are they merely superficial? I mean, one of the areas is around energy generation, where private sector is allowed, I think, to generate its own 100 megawatts, if I'm not mistaken, of power. Many saying that was quite a significant shift in policy orientation. The fact of private partnership taking off, for example, in the rebuilding of our port infrastructure, saying that's quite a shift in policy orientation as well. Are these deep enough?
These are, I mean, on the energy side, this is really deep. It is really deep, Thabo, because what it does is that it allows private sector to put money where its needs are. So we're seeing quite a number of corporations investing on energy generations, be it their own processes internally, which can be tweaked to create energy, or the renewables, wind, solar, and some of them have started to look at ways of using also platinum in the so-called fuel cells. But more important also the investment on batteries, which you see among some players who are producing vanadium in the bushveld of South Africa. So there's a huge shift, which many South Africans don't notice, through the president allowing companies to produce over 100 megawatts for their own consumption. What we do need to see, though, which the Treasury in the past few days has released an announcement that how municipalities can also play a part in working with the private sector to ensure that their own communities are also have security around energy. So we're going to see that really happening at a faster pace. But in doing so, we must not forget that we still have a very huge dependence on really ensuring that the base load is available. And that base load really means that as for South Africa, as it transitions, coal will remain a bigger part of us. And if becoming a bigger part of us, we have to deal with the challenges of Eskom. And in doing so, ensure that Eskom, as it transitions itself, also work on technologies that can reduce emission, that can reduce some of the negative impact that are associated with the history that we see across the broader part of Gauteng, particularly the eastern part of Gauteng in certain days. So these are the challenges, and I think many South Africans understand that. But this is the only bright spot. At this period, Thabo, as you are aware, with the war in Europe and how many countries were looking at South Africa to supply some coal, because countries like Germany, when Scholz came here to South Africa to try and get some coal, one of the difficulties that South Africa has is its rail as well as port infrastructure, which has been destroyed as a result of the repurposing of the state that we're talking about in the past program, where the ANC alliance cadres were involved in repurposing one institution, destroying them in the process, frustrating private sector, where in this period we should be making again significant gains in our coal exports, because many European countries are now looking for coal, given the crisis that they're facing, and how they can really punish Russia as they go back to coal to ensure energy security for themselves.
Dr. Mondi, I appreciate your time and thank you very much for helping us in this conversation looking at the social compact, the power to align all the various players to capture their focus, to focus on growth, jobs, as well as security.